Welcome to What You Came Here to Create, the podcast to support driven, ambitious women who know that they're capable of more. I'm your host, Beck Sands. I am an author, a PR consultant, I'm a visibility mentor, I'm a certified coach, and I've also been in business for over 7 years. So together we are going to discover the mindset, the courage, the visibility, and the self-trust to support you to bring to life the business or the creative project on your own terms. But most importantly, this is a really safe space that you can come back to feel more grounded, because this work can feel so deeply dysregulating, but it doesn't have to. So let's take a deep breath and together, let's trust ourselves and get ready to do the work that we came here to create. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the What You Came Here to Create podcast. It is wonderful to be here with you today, and I'm going to be sharing on the topic of carving out time and space for deep work. This is one that is really near and dear to my heart because it was really challenging for me to carve out the time and space, not just to write this book, but also to start my business, which I did on the side of my corporate jobs for many years. Now, it took me some creativity just in and of itself to find the time really to be able to bring to life these ideas that I had. And I remember back in my corporate days, I would literally carve out like an hour in the morning or an hour at lunchtime and on my commutes and on the weekends, and anytime that I could, I would be working on my business. I was studying coaching on the side, and so I would be working with pro bono clients at lunchtime and on the weekends and in the evenings and any time that I could. I was building my business. I was creating sales pages. I was writing copy. I was promoting my work. I was building my website. I was building my offers. I was gathering testimonials. I was doing all of the things that would ultimately lead me and support me to having my own business and leaving my corporate career. So when I did that back in 2019, I had already been doing things on the side for 7 years. So very well versed in not having a lot of time to do things. Now, when I had my big corporate job, as I mentioned, I was, getting really creative in the way that I was creating time essentially, where I didn't have a lot and really prioritizing the things that I wanted. So I'm going to chat with you today why you need protected time to bring your ideas and your goals to life, not just more motivation. I'm going to share with you the difference between being busy and making actual progress, why ambitious women often put themselves last, the hidden cost of constantly prioritizing everyone else's needs before your own, and how the first hour rule that I have implemented helped me to complete my book, and it will also help you to transform your productivity as well. So let's get into this. Here's how you can start to carve out time and space for deep work. Now, what I know to be true is that everyone has different levels of responsibility. Everyone has things going on in their lives, and having no time is often the number one reason why we tell ourselves and others that we can't do things. And it's kind of tricky because in a lot of ways, it's true. There is a finite amount of time in every day. There's a finite amount of energy. And so this is why I always implement what I call the first hour rule. Now, for me, I really thrive in like a creative environment, in a creative mindset. when my brain is fresh. I call it like having a fresh brain, but it's like essentially at the beginning of the day when my brain's not tired yet from all the work, and I'm actually able to sit down and create and do the work and, put together the strategy or write the pages of the book or do the deep focused work that needs to be done. If I leave it until later in the day, then often what happens is my brain gets tired. I can still do it. I can force myself to do it. But A, it takes me like 3 times as long. And B, it just feels so much harder and more draining than if I had just done the work first thing in the morning, right? And so for me, having that first hour rule is really supportive because it means that when I sit down at my desk, the first thing that I do is the deepest focused work that is a priority. Because also what I have found is that if I leave my client work until later, it will always get done because there's external pressure to do so. But if I do all my client work first and then let's say I sit down at 4 p.m. to work on my book for an hour, do you think that that's going to happen? Definitely not. There's no way. I'm not doing that because there's no external pressure, even though I'm like, this is an important task for me, or like, it could be working on the business or whatever deep focused work needs to happen. But the thing is, when you sit down at the end of the day, it's not going to happen, right? Like, and I know that like by then our brain's tired. We have already probably got decision fatigue. We're kind of just like, let's get away from the desk, right? So 4 p.m. onwards is just a good time to do things like replying to emails and that kind of thing, in my humble opinion. But when you think about the first hour, so the first hour rule is really essentially how I brought this book to life. So over a number of years, and this isn't like just every day, but this is as many days as I would sit down at my desk for like the 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and I would write pages of my book, and that's how my book is here today. So it was like I still had a lot of work to do that day. I had client work, I had clients, I had business building activities, but in order to be able to write this book and do that deep focused work, which was so meaningful for me, I had to prioritize that first hour of the day so that then I could move on to other things, and I would know that all the client work would get done, all of the other stuff would get done. But it was just me going, no, I'm going to focus on my priority, which was the book, which is often like the most non-urgent thing, because all of the urgent things that pop up throughout the day are often other people's priorities, right? It's like our clients, our families, our colleagues, whatever. Like you've got notifications pinging, you've got emails going, you've got people following up on things. There's social media notifications and so on and so forth. And so those are the things that feel urgent. Those are the things that we will like stop and go, I need to get to this now, or there's like that external pressure, right? But most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, that's not actually urgent. And so we need to start to compartmentalize that stuff in order to get the deep focused work done, in order that we can carve out time and space to do that deep focused work. And it's the deep focused work that is going to support you to do the work that you came here to create once you've made that decision as to what that is. Okay, so this is what I cover in the second chapter of my book, What You Came Here to Create, and deciding is the first chapter. So if you missed that podcast episode where I talk through that, make sure that you go back and check out this season's episode 1 of the podcast. And I support you to dive into how you can start to make the decision as to what you want to create. And if you want to go further on this, make sure that you pre-order my book, What You Came Here to Create. But so this is really sort of just about getting really disciplined with your time and getting real about what your priorities actually are. So for me, I was like, okay, my book is the priority, number one. Like that's my priority. But of course, I also, life doesn't exist in a vacuum, and I also needed to keep a lot of other balls spinning. I also needed to keep my client work going. I also needed to do the business building activities. I also needed to do the marketing and so on and so forth. And so there's just so many different competing priorities, and not to mention all of those urgent/non-urgent notifications that pop up all day, every day, and distract and take away from our focus, right? So what I did was I just got really, really disciplined with it and just sat down with a timer with ambient sounds, because that really helps me to get into the zone of focused creative work and to shut out other noise. So like ambient sounds, like that deep focus music that you can find on Spotify or any of those kinds of platforms. And for me, like that music really helps me to drop into a really focused and creative space where I can actually get the work done, which is so, so important for any kind of deep focused pursuit. And even if it's just like you're wanting to get your business to bring your business to life, and you're needing to create the strategy for that, it's really important that you then go and start to set aside that time, like the first hour in the day, so that you can bring that to life and get that done before all of the day's distractions and all of the other urgent, non-urgent stuff comes up. Okay, so those ambient sounds, I also really like the Pomodoro technique, which is like a timer. So it's like the 25 minutes deep focused work. Often that helps me to get into it if I'm kind of resisting. So I'm like, I'll put my headphones on. I've got my ambient sounds. I'll put a timer on, and I'm like, if I can just sit here and do this deep focus work for 25 minutes, then I can take a break. Then I can go and make a tea, or like get up and fill up my water bottle, or just check email, or whatever it might be. But oftentimes what happens is I get into that like 25 minutes, and then I'm like, actually, I can keep going because now I'm into it. So often it's really just getting into the flow. It's just being able to sit down and actually get started and get focused and minimize the other distractions, and just know that this is the only thing that you have to be doing right now. That is really the trick to it, right? And this underpins everything when it comes to doing the work that you came here to create. Because if you don't have the focus, and if you don't have the discipline to actually do the work, then you're not going to be able to create anything of substance, because you really do need to put in the time, put in the work, and discipline yourself into doing the thing consistently, or as consistently as possible, in order to bring that to life, in order to create the vision of what you want your life and your work to be into reality. Before we get back to today's episode, I'm so excited to let you know that my new book, What You Came Here to Create, is now available for pre-order. If you have ever felt called to create something meaningful, like a business, a book, a career change, a creative project, but you found yourself held back by things like fear, self-doubt, and perfectionism, then this book is for you. And if you pre-order before the 15th of September 2026, then you will get access to my Visible Unicorn Challenge as a special gift, where I will support you and guide you through the mindset, the self-trust, and the visibility practices to support you to put your work out into the world with confidence and feeling more grounded than ever. So pre-order now via the link in the show notes and at cameheretocreate.com. So let's now talk about the difference between being busy and making meaningful progress. Okay, so often in our day-to-day, we are doing busy tasks, and I do this all the time. Trust me, like this hasn't stopped. Like I have to check myself constantly on this. But often it's how we actually procrastinate, and it's how our resistance kind of comes up. So this is what like Stephen Pressfield calls in his books, The War of Art and Turning Pro, and he calls this resistance. So it's basically where you will do anything except for the work that's in your heart. Like you'll do anything except sit down to write, right? And what's holding us back is resistance. And resistance really will manifest in ways like, for me, it's checking email and replying to email. It's, doing those quick tasks that I feel like, oh, I really should do that. But then it takes me the whole morning. So things like updating a spreadsheet or filling in a client document or, just doing the replying to emails and then pitching something out or like, just those little kind of tasks that just add up. So I will often be prone to do that instead of doing the deep work, right? And that's where it can be really tricky because it feels like you're being productive and it feels like you are doing work. And actually you are. Like all of this stuff or most of this stuff really does need to get done. But you're doing that because you're resisting doing the deep focused work, which means you're actually going to be putting your work out there, which means you're actually going to be visible in front of people, which means you're putting your work out to be judged, which means you could be rejected, which means, ultimately if you can keep on going down that rabbit hole of, and what if this, and what if this, and what if this, you do think about like the worst case scenario, right? And like ultimately it can, your brain can kind of go subconsciously to all of the absolute worst things that could happen in your life and your whole life falls apart because of this thing. So of course we're going to resist sitting down to do that day's work because we don't want our whole lives to fall apart ultimately. But really what's happening is we're just using that busy work as an excuse or as a way to prevent us from having to do that really deep work that can feel risky, challenging, and that feels like we are putting ourselves out there more and more, right? So in order to combat that, I really feel like, going on the first hour rule. So doing your work the first hour of every day, if you can, like obviously if you've got a job and you've got a career and you're building something on the side, you might not be able to do that. And so if that's you, that's absolutely fine. You can always work out where you've got time in your day to do that. And sometimes it might be setting some boundaries, like putting in an hour at lunch where you actually do work on your business, or putting in, 2 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday where you can get some focused work done with your fresh brain that's not tired from all the work you've done yet. And really, like, not all time is created equal. Not all time is created equal. And here's what I mean by that. When we're sitting down to work, if we have a fresh brain that isn't tired from all the work we've done, then we are able to get things done faster, be more focused, feel more ease when doing the work. If you leave it, like I was talking about earlier, if you leave it till that 4 p.m. when your brain's tired, you've got decision fatigue, all you want to do is get away from the desk, then it's likely that you're going to be struggling even harder against that resistance, and you're going to be feeling like, I just need to, sit here and just force myself to do it. And then your brain, and your mind wanders because it's like you've already got that decision fatigue and your mind is already tired from focusing all day. And so it just takes 3 times as long to do the same work that could have been done in 1 hour in the morning. Like, have you ever sat down and you're like, oh, I just don't know what to do when I'm like putting together a strategy or a document or a report or something that requires a lot of focus, and you're like, you resisted it, you've put it off, then now you've got to sit down and actually do it. You've got to write the thing, you've got to create the thing, you've got to do the strategy, whatever it is. And then you're like one day you just sit down and you're like, oh, I just smashed that out. Like, that was actually fine. It wasn't hard at all. But then other times you're like, you might pick it up at a time when you're tired, you're exhausted, you're not in the right frame of mind, and it just feels so hard. You're just like, oh, I'm just pushing uphill trying to get this thing done. And every single bit of the process seems really challenging. Well, that's because I really believe that not all time is created equal and that you're going to fast track your success. You're going to get so much more done if you choose the times that work for you, that are you're more productive in. So like I said, for me, that's that first hour of the day when my brain is fresh and I can get so much done. So I could get like 3 hours of work done in 1 hour. And that's really how I created the book that I did. I just really compressed my most productive time into that first hour of the day. All right. So I want to share also why ambitious women often put ourselves last. Okay. And this, I don't know if it's like an innate women thing, like female thing, where you just like put everyone else's needs first because you're kind of like drawn to being that carer, or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I definitely am guilty of doing that. I'm like, and even still these days, I'm like, I will put everyone else's needs first because I'm like, everyone has to be doing well because otherwise I'll worry about them, or I need to make sure that everyone's okay around me. So I've had to actually put in place really strategic boundaries for that so that I know that I'm taken care of first, because otherwise I will literally not be able to get anything done, or I will, just burn out, and that doesn't help anyone. And so really it's like about being strategic with your time, saying no where you can, and putting in place boundaries so that you can get the work done that is so close to your heart. So we don't have kids at the moment. So if you've heard my story, we did an IVF journey, didn't work out to how we wanted it to do, but I'm very happy. We've got 2 beautiful cats, Ollie and Earl Grey, and and my husband and I are very happy. But I still, and for ages I thought that it's because I don't have kids, I shouldn't complain about being busy, or I should just be like, I have time for everything and everyone. But it doesn't work like that. And it's really only since working on bigger projects that I've been able to go, no, like I am busy as well. And you can obviously see I've got my book in my hand. So that's exciting because in the first podcast episode, I didn't. It was just like, I had to change the way that I thought about that. And I had to really transform my thinking around the idea and the concept of being busy. And I was like, I've got just as much right to have boundaries as someone with kids does, right? So I don't know why I didn't think that, or I just subconsciously thought, well, I should be available and I shouldn't complain about not being busy because I don't have kids, right? But it's like, no, I actually am super busy and I do need boundaries, and I do need to have things in place in order to be able to get my work done. So for you as well, like make sure that you're not putting yourself last. Make sure that you are in fact putting yourself first, because that is going to support you and to support everyone around you as well. Then if you're burnt out and unhappy and not doing the work that you came here to do. Okay. So the other thing I want to share is the hidden cost of constantly prioritizing everyone else's needs. Okay. So the hidden cost, and it's really not so hidden, it becomes obvious. But the more that you just prioritize everyone else and allow your own needs to go unmet, you will just feel in your life like there is something missing. You'll feel a lack. You'll feel like maybe life is slipping you by. It'll feel like you haven't been able to do the things that you wanted to do. It'll feel like something that you start to be a bit resentful for, or a bit victimized for, right? And you don't want to get to that place. So you want to be able to stand up and say, this is what I want. I'm going to put in place healthy boundaries that I'm really clear about with my friends, my family, my colleagues, my work, whatever it is. And so that you can actually like get the work done that you really want to do, get the projects done that you really want to do, so that you can carve out time and space to do the work that feels so true for you. If you're trying to start a business on the side, it might mean paring back from work a little bit. It might not mean giving 110% at the office every single day, like I know that you do. Maybe it means, cutting back a little bit and just taking a bit of time for yourself. And maybe it means, not doing work on the weekends for the office, but instead using that time to work on your business. So those are the things that I really wanted to share with you today. There's so much more I could say, but I feel like these episodes could go on and on forever. But if you've got any questions, please do reach out to me on socials. You can DM me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on these episodes. Thank you so much for listening to my thoughts and to this podcast. And I really hope that this has supported you and will support you to bring to life the work that you want to create. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of What You Came Here to Create. If something in this episode resonated with you, I would love it if you would share it with a friend or share it on social media, and make sure that you tag me so that we can get this into the ears of more women who may need to hear this message. And before you go, just remember this: you don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. As you take the action, the clarity will come to you. So trust yourself and take the next step, and keep an eye out for the next episode of What You Came Here to Create.